This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, gonna be in prison with Chad Daybell. Rick Astley, by the way.
Got rickrolled early.
And because reality is stranger than fiction, today those two worlds collide. Chad Daybell and Rick Astley, outside of my head, in real life, they collide in the letters of Chad Daybell from prison.
Yes.
The moment has come, hell has frozen over.
And today, isn't today the rapture? Isn't the rapture supposed to take place today too?
What?
Well, now we know why.
Are you serious? Was this on the schedule, or is this just happening because of Rick Astley and well,
I don't. Chicken or the egg here, I'm not sure, but I know today was supposed to be the rapture because I was going to fill up my gas tank yesterday and I went, well, why bother?
Exactly.
Hey, you're exactly right. It will just be filled for you. It happens, just like Chad Daybell getting down to Rick Astley. So we're going to go through Chad Daybell's letters from prison. Number 5 and number 6 is now out there. It was kind of a delay. I was wondering if they're going to get to drop number 6 or if somebody said, maybe this is a bad idea. But apparently, well, dumber minds have prevailed. So we're going to go through that. And then in the next hour, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see Dateline on Friday.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Sandra Birchmore. This is a case that we've been following here for more than a year. And it's fascinating. It's horrible. It's the story of the young woman who groomed from the age of 14 in the Canton, Massachusetts Police Explorer program, was groomed by one of the officers, Matthew Farwell, who's now facing federal charges for this, eventually is pregnant and is murdered. They initially ruled it a suicide for years locally. Canton said, suicide. Well, guess what? One of the officers that was involved, with her and the whole damn thing, they're facing charges now, and it goes way back, and it involves at least 4 officers essentially passing this young woman around like a piece of meat, and it's so disturbing and such a cover up. And yes, I said Canton, which is right by Stoughton, which is right in Karen Reed country, which is right in Proctor country, which then you also go, oh, well, what's the other case that they've had issues with? The Anna Walsh, the Brian Walsh case, where they try to get all the evidence thrown out because Proctor was the lead investigator on that. Well, they didn't throw it away. They're obviously not throwing this away either. But it shows a systematic corruption problem within that general geographic area, within those general departments that share resources. Now, because one is bad over here, it doesn't necessarily make this one over here. They're all very separate, very different cases. You can't say, well, because there's a cover up here, every crime in this area is BS. No, you can't. But there is certainly what appears to be quite a cover-up that took place, and we're going to dive into that. Bob Mata, defense attorney, is going to be joining us in the next hour to go through all of that. But we're going to start today, like I said, Chad Daybell and the letters. We've been going through them. This is his prison letters. He's trying to tell his side of the story. And we've made it up to letter number 5. Who's excited?
This is my favorite. I'm just beaming over here. I just can't get enough of this.
In Chad's own words, because we've AI'd Chad, basically. Took one of his speeches from years ago. So when people go, well, this doesn't sound real, Chad doesn't sound real. No. Chad's horrible at reading. Chad reads at about a 3rd grade level.
and this is a really good facsimile of Chad.
If you listen to Chad actually speaking and then listen to this, you're like, oh, this is just how Chad sounds. He reads like a 3rd grader. Like, you remember like Around the World where we're all going to read a paragraph and then every once in a while it'd be really, I was one of those kids who freaking hated that. Yeah. Which is crazy because now I can riff off of a teleprompter all day. But back then, Reading copy, reading anything out loud, not my forte.
Remember when you used to count how many people before you and you'd figure out what the paragraph was? And then and then somebody throw you a curveball and it was the one after that?
Yeah, then like somebody's like, can I get a bathroom pass? And you're like,
you're like,
crap, now I got to move to this paragraph. And I hated that.
Thanks for all the stress you just gave me, Stacy. That just ruined my whole day because I feel the pressure already.
I know.
I think it was nerves, though. I mean, it was anxiety. It was being afraid of being embarrassed. It was all that. I was shy and so it was like, I just don't want to screw this up. Also horrible at around the world flashcards and math and like multiplication. To this day, I don't know multiplication tables. My mother tried to drill that into me one summer with flashcards. Like, do this, and like I don't remember.
That doesn't help though either, does it? When the parents it does not help.
No, nope. I hated it even more. And to this day, what happens if you don't have a calculator with you at all times? I got a calculator with me at all times. We all have calculators. And we have word calculators now that can do all that. So, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here of anger. Let's begin going into the Chad Daybell letter. This is number 5. We have 2 of them to go through today. And let's begin and take a listen to what Chad has to say as he tells his side of the story.
I'm eager to explain the events of 2019 to you, but it is very important that I first build a solid foundation of facts. Once these facts and my religious beliefs are properly explained, the events of 2019 will finally make sense.
Finally!
During my court trial, I was bothered at how simple, well-known beliefs were twisted by the state into sinister, frightening ideas that the state repurposed. Claiming these ideas were the catalyst for terrible crimes I did not commit time after time, it was the state who defined what my religious beliefs are, not the witness on the stand. As I read through the trial transcript, it is even more obvious on paper. The state repeatedly made inaccurate statements in the form of questions, and the witnesses would get into a rhythm of saying yes or correct many times in a row without hesitation.
Yes.
The result was a distortion of my beliefs, and I think an incomplete picture or half story of what the witnesses actually heard or saw. And unfortunately, my lawyer failed to fill in those blanks on cross-examination. So I feel it is best to begin by sharing with you my near-death experiences, which have had very significant impacts on my life. There have been 4 times in my life when I've actually died, and my spirit has gone into another realm before returning to my body. The LDS Church teaches that a human being consists of 2 parts, a spirit body and a physical body. The spirit body resides inside the physical body and gives it life. When we die, the spirit and the body separate from each other. The spirit continues to live and goes into the spirit world, while the body ceases to function. For example, picture your spirit as your hand and your body as a glove. The glove is just a covering, and it can't move without your hand inside it. A near-death experience,
like a condom,
or NDE, is like when the hand is briefly removed from the glove and then put back inside. NDES can be found in historical records dating back thousands of years among all races, nations, and religions. They have been part of LDS lore since the church was founded, and NDEs were regularly printed in the church's newspapers and magazines. Many NDES indicate, as LDS doctrine confirms, that before we were born, we lived as part of a heavenly family. We were eager for the chance to come to earth and receive a physical body. We understood it would be a challenging experience, but that our time on earth would help us grow emotionally and spiritually. We all helped write our own life plan or blueprint for what we would accomplish during our lives, who we would interact with, and when our life would end. Most NDES occur when someone dies, but it isn't their time to go. They are sent back into their body to complete their life mission. My first near-death experience was rather short, but it's had a profound effect on me. It was August 1985, and I just turned 17. I was at Flaming Gorge Reservoir in northern Utah as part of a church youth group that included several of my friends. We had started the day by leaping into the reservoir from cliff ledges along the lake shore that were about 20 feet high. That was fun, but then we noticed a 60-foot high cliff that jetted out over the water. It looked like a natural diving board. We saw someone jump off it, and soon we were scrambling up the hillside to reach it. Once we got up there and saw how high it truly was, we were intimidated, but we were also stupid teenagers. My friends convinced me I should jump first. I shook off my nervousness and gazed down at the water below me. Finally, I pushed off with my right foot and began my descent. I remember thinking, this is taking a really long time. When I eventually hit the water, it felt like I had slammed into concrete. A shock went through my entire body, and I saw a flash of white light. I felt an audible pop at the base of my skull, and I thought, oh no, I broke my neck. I also wondered if I'd cut open my forehead because there was a brief searing pain above my eyes. I quickly realized something even more alarming had happened. My spirit was partly out of my body. The best way to describe it is that my physical body went deeper into the water than my spirit did. This caused my spirit to pop out through my head, but with my spirit's knees stuck in my skull. Yeah. In other words, for some reason, I didn't make it all the way out of my body. It was more like 3/4 out. During those few moments, I was in another dimension. I saw an endless white plain in all directions, and I heard a deep, rich melody that sounded like a synthesizer. As I pondered the music later, it was very similar to a song called 1984 that opens Van Halen's 1984 album. The song is an instrumental that is just over a minute long.
It was 85.
It definitely has the same uplifting, rich, heavenly sound that I heard while out of my body. I noticed the pain was gone that I had initially experienced. There was a soothing warmth surrounding me, and I saw little pellets of light and energy rushing toward me from all directions. These pellets were absorbed by my spirit, and I felt wonderful, even euphoric, and at complete peace. However, my physical body soon started to float toward the surface. My spirit quickly reversed course through my head and was sucked back into place. I instantly felt chilled and somewhat paralyzed. I must have taken a while getting to the surface because one of my friends who had been standing on the shore had jumped into the water to rescue me. He grabbed hold of me and towed me to the water's edge. All I said to him was, "Something snapped when I hit the surface. I'm done for the day." After I returned home from Flaming Gorge, my entire body was sore for a week. I felt off kilter, like my body and spirit were disjointed. Sometimes my right eye would go blind, but if I hit the side of my head with my palm, I could see again. On the other hand, I was spiritually changed.
Let's stop for a second.
I'd glimpsed another dimension, and it had felt like home.
So this is what death apparently sounds like.
Do not invoke Van Halen.
This is, I guess, this is how death sounds. Van Halen synthesizers that lead into Jump.
I'm making a list of songs that Chad has ruined for me for the rest of my life. Whitney's on the list, and now Van Halen. And apparently later, it'll be Rick Astley. So
go ahead and jump, jump, dun, dun, go ahead and jump.
So how ironic is that?
Legs last night.
How ironic is it that it goes into Jump after he just jumped off? Isn't that weird?
I wonder if that's a Chad Daybell after the fact, subconscious mind correlation, that he's not seeing the, because I'm going to guess in 1985 when he was doing this. I mean, this song came out in 84. Right. So I'm going to guess he had the cassette tape or something and was thinking of the song Jump before he jumped. So I'm guessing in his mind, he's playing that 60-second intro cut called 1984, which then goes into Jump on the album. So that's what he's doing. But somehow it's the spirits, this heaven sounds like the intro to Van Halen's 1984, according to Chad Daybell.
I'm actually learning a lot by listening to this because I don't know a lot about his religion. But it sounds a lot like the woo-woo world, and I call it that with respect.
Yes.
But the coming to earth and the living another life and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not putting it down. Whatever you get into is cool with me. But I didn't realize it was so similar to people who believe that they, are beings from another planet.
It's all woo-woo with him. And I will put him down because it's insane. I'm not saying woo-woo world I'm saying Chad's version of woo-woo world is insane. It's just filled with his own delusions. So he's 3/4 out of his body at Flaming Gorge, and his spirit comes out of his head, and his spirit knees are stuck in his skull, and Van Halen's 1984 is playing as a little serenade as he almost dies.
He could have listened to the Pointer Sisters jump too, now that I think of it.
God.
That would have been a better one. Yeah. Jump for my love, jump in, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Weather next.
God, the flashbacks are just huge right now.
I'll tell you what this was. If we're playing the woo woo and playing with Chad's religion and shit, the fact that everything like this occurred, God failed. He didn't take out Chad when he had the chance. And that's what I was chuckling to my mind. It's like, I've had 4 near-death experiences. Like, God's tried to kill you 4 times, hasn't he? And this hasn't worked out. He's trying to prevent all the shit that came on later in life. And somehow you have managed to survive it all. It's got to be like one of those. It's like a fly. He's like a fly for God, where it's like he's flying around the food, and you're like, damn it, I want to kill you, and then I think I got it. God
Nope.
damn it, he keeps going.
God.
So does that mean he actually could be a prophet?
Oh, don't go. Oh, Todd, you had to go there?
I've been wondering the same thing every night.
I just know that was something that he always kind of talked about, and people talk about, and it's like, well, if you got 4 near-death experiences but you don't die off, maybe there's a reason. Maybe
all at the end here, we all should be ready to go to Rexburg and wait for Chad and Lori to be king and queen. And yeah, I think you've raised a good point, Todd. I think, okay, well, we're wrong.
All right.
All hail Chad.
All hail Todd.
Yes, you will be at the right side of Chad.
I was just going to say, I'll be seated at the right hand of the whatever he is.
Yep. You'll get to hand up, because when they do communion, they're out of the wafers. They hand out fruit snacks. It's Gushers. You get a Gusher. Yeah,
meat sticks.
Yeah, meat sticks. It's old Wisconsin meat sticks. Okay, let's continue on with Chad's near-death lifestyle.
I still lived a normal life, graduating from Springville High and then completing my freshman year at BYU Provo. Then during my LDS mission, certain spiritual gifts increased. I was better able to receive promptings and impressions that helped keep me out of danger. As I mentioned earlier, I have died 4 times. I will describe the second incident in the next letter. It happened while I was on vacation with my family in San Diego, California. I was struck by a large wave at La Jolla Cove and was not completely knocked out of my body this time. I really needed to stay out of the water. Bookshelf. In the 1970s, several scientists and researchers began to study modern-day reports of near-death experiences, or NDES. Dr. Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, compiled several of these accounts and brought NDES to the attention of the general public. At around the same time, Dr. George Ritchie wrote a fascinating first-person account of his death, his journey into another realm, and then his return to his body. The book is Return from Tomorrow and has sold millions of copies worldwide. These books and others like them have helped people believe in an afterlife where we will reunite with our deceased family members, friends, and even pets. I recently became aware of an NDE that happened to Jeremy Renner, the famous actor who plays the character Hawkeye in the Marvel Avengers movies. As you likely know, Renner was involved in a devastating accident on New Year's Day 2023 when he attempted to stop a snowplow from hitting his nephew. Renner suffered severe injuries with more than 30 broken bones. His recovery took many months, including having to learn how to walk again. He has written a book titled My Next Breath about his ordeal. Renner also shared his story on an episode of Kelly Ripa's Let's Talk podcast. He explained to her that during his accident, he felt his spirit leave his body. He said, "It's a wonderful, wonderful relief to be removed from your body. It's the most exhilarating peace you could ever feel." He added, "It's the highest adrenaline rush, but the peace that comes with it, it's magnificent. It's so magical." Renner didn't really want to return to his body, and he was actually a bit angry about it. He saw his damaged legs and thought, yeah, that's going to hurt later. Renner was only in the afterlife for a few minutes, but the experience was a great confirmation to him about what is really important in life. He says the experience taught him to repel the things he had given so much value to before, and that he now sees as having zero value. He said he now invests his energy into love and his relationships with others. These books I've mentioned, as well as movies such as Ghost and The Sixth Sense, have helped to make your near-death experiences and the reality of an afterlife an accepted part of American culture. Musical notes. All major religions believe in a divine being, a higher power, or a heavenly Father. The LDS Church takes that concept to the next level by teaching that we are all part of an eternal family and we are the literal spirit children of heavenly parents. I hope that idea is comforting to you. We have a set of loving parents watching over us, cheering us on, and assisting us during our earthly journey. There are times when we feel alone, of course, but be assured our heavenly family members are always nearby. The LDS doctrine of a heavenly mother was first taught by the prophet Joseph Smith. A woman named Zena D. Young, who would later serve as the LDS Church's General Relief Society president, was deeply saddened by the death of her mother. Zena spoke to Joseph about her intense grief and asked him, "Will I know my mother as my mother when I get over to the other side?" Joseph responded, "Certainly you will. More than that, you will meet and become acquainted with your eternal mother, the wife of your Father in heaven." Among the people that Joseph taught this doctrine to was Eliza R. Snow. She was well known for her poetry. She had published many poems prior to her baptism into the church in 1835, and she wrote more throughout her life. Eliza wrote a poem about this topic of heavenly parents in 1845 titled, "My Father in Heaven." The poem was soon transformed into the hymn, "O My Father," and was included in the 1851 LDS hymn book. In 1855, the Deseret News reported it was Brigham Young's favorite hymn. The hymn has been sung by LDS congregations ever since, but the powerful lyrics are often taken for granted. They cover the entire LDS plan of salvation, such as our premortal spirit life, the veil of forgetfulness, when we come to earth, the purpose of life, and the return after death to our loving heavenly parents. Here are the hymns, 4 verses. "O my Father, thou that dwellest in the high and glorious place, when shall I regain thy presence? And again behold thy face. In thy holy habitation did my spirit once reside, in my first primeval childhood. Was I nurtured near thy side? For a wise and glorious purpose thou hast placed me here on earth, and withheld the recollection of my former friends in birth. Yet oft times a secret something whispered, you're a stranger here, and I felt that I had wandered from a more exalted sphere. I had learned to call thee Father through thy Spirit from on high, but until the key of knowledge was restored, I knew not why. In the heavens are parents single? No, the thought makes reason stare. Truth is reason, truth eternal, tells me I've a mother there. When I leave this frail existence, when I lay this mortal by Father, Mother, may I meet you in your royal courts on high, then at length when I've completed all you sent me forth to do, with your mutual approbation, let me come and dwell with you. It is truly a tender poem, expressing the longing we feel to be embraced again by our heavenly parents. I hope we can follow their example. We are here on earth to build each other up help each other along, and be a positive influence regardless of our current earthly situation. Money, fame, and power don't matter. Charity, love, and kindness are the keys to joy and happiness in this life and in the world to come.
Okay, that was totally Faith by George Michael, was it not?
Well, the very end.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, we went from real organ music, and I'm like, ooh, Faith.
Yeah. I'm like, see, I'm so good at name that tune.
Yeah. Freedom, I don't want you better. I don't want nobody, baby. Yeah, there you go.
That freaking me out. Stacy earlier talking about, the reading circle in school and having to count ahead and being stressed out about that. And now hearing church music. I am stressed out more today than I've been.
We're so triggering you.
Yes, I'm being it's totally triggering me this morning, you guys.
I think Chad has near-death experiences the same way people are allergic to, like, random things that they're not really allergic to. Like, is he truly dying? What is this one?
She had a little Rick Astley going on there.
Oh, that's coming. I can't wait for that.
Good. I'm like, please don't leave me hanging. I need my Rick.
That's in the next letter. But I mean, I wonder, like if people are like, oh, I'm allergic to that. Are you going to break out? Are you going to like not be able to breathe? Because that's an allergy that exists.
Yes.
Or do you just not like peanuts? Because it's okay not to like them. It doesn't mean you have you just don't like them. And I'm wondering if near death is like that for Chad, where it's like, you didn't really have a near death experience. You had a trauma and it was scary. And I don't know. I mean, the way that he kind of talks about it makes me wonder. Your thoughts?
This is a sick, twisted individual. I don't want to have thoughts. I'm trying to, the first time we did these letters, I really kind of wanted to get into his head, wanted to see what this guy's about. And now that I don't want to get in there, I don't want to root around and find out what he's thinking. It scares me. What's happening in this man's head?
Well, I guess it would be nice if you could get in his mind. And I was going to try and go, I guess it would be nice if I could
touch your body.
Yeah, but I figured it'd be weird if I went into you probably don't want to touch Chad Daybell's, jelly-filled body. Yeah.
I don't. I got nothing. There's some illness here. We've known this for a while. Anybody who could pull off what he pulled off. But this is a very sick man.
Illness or belief system? Illness or religion? Or both?
I think it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
I really do. And especially when you go back to the love letters and all that kind of stuff, there is some really odd.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. Yeah. People who are talented and creative sometimes say some really weird shit. Tony, I would put you in that. I would, but I would put myself there too, Stacy. Yeah. We all have little quirks about us. This is somebody who has a really vivid imagination that goes in some weird places.
Yeah, and believes it. He can't. That's the difference. He's not over here saying these things for a laugh because it's so crazy and out there. He's believing the shit.
Right.
And then operating and living on it. That's the difference. Well, letter 6 dropped this week. So let's get into it. This is an exciting one. This is, as he promised, he's going to tell us more about, I think, what near-death experience number 3 and 4 now. Let's find out what happens.
And the countdown continues.
Moving up a notch. It's Chad Daybell, letter number 6.
Near-death experience happened in the summer of 1993. 8 years had passed since I had jumped off the cliff at Flaming Gorge Reservoir. I was now nearly 25 years old. Tammy and I had moved to Ogden the previous year when I was hired as a copy editor for the Standard Examiner newspaper, and we now had a 1-year-old son. Ogden is about a 90-minute drive from Springville, so we felt we were on our own, but still close enough to visit our families regularly. I really enjoyed my new job. I had been the city editor during my senior year for BYU's Daily Universe newspaper, but going to the Standard Examiner was a major step up. The company was a full-scale operation with a bustling newsroom and dozens of employees, and I was right on the front lines in producing the newspaper each day. This was an exciting time when computer typesetting programs were being introduced, but when I first started working there, we still actually cut and pasted the newspaper together. On the copy desk, we would design the pages, edit the stories, write the headlines, then send the articles to the production room. If an article ended up being too long for the page, I would be called to the production room to decide which part of the story to cut out. Then with an X-Acto knife, we would literally cut the text to fit and paste it onto the page board. There was a lot of stress as the daily deadline approached, with people running everywhere and shouting to each other as we all tried to do 3 things at once. I would be editing a last-minute article on my computer, but listening for someone to shout, "Chad, get back here and cut this story," or "that headline isn't long enough, rewrite it." So the job was invigorating, and I was getting a hands-on crash course in writing, editing, and publishing. The 8-hour shifts went quickly because we rarely had time for a break. Since I had an interest in sports, I became the main copy editor for the sports section. I thrived in the excitement each weekend as we scrambled to get in all of the high school and college stories and scores before the deadline. On those nights, I usually designed each page and wrote every headline in the section. It was high pressure at times, but rewarding when we put together a great section. I got along well with my colleagues, and I expected to steadily work my way up the corporate ladder and remain with the newspaper for several years. Tammy had made some good friends in Ogden, and we enjoyed exploring northern Utah together. I was focused on my career and my young family. Then my parents invited us to join them on a vacation to San Diego, California. I had spent my first 2 years of life there while my father was serving in the U.S. Navy, and the area has remained a special place for our family. One spot we liked to visit was La Jolla Cove, where we'd play on the beach and look for seashells. When we arrived on this particular day, it was low tide, and a jagged rock outcropping had been exposed. I climbed out onto the outcropping looking for shells that might have gotten trapped among the rocks. The ocean had been calm, but I suddenly looked up to see a towering wave bearing down on me. I had no way to avoid it. For a moment, I considered trying to ride the wave to the beach, but I knew I would surely be sliced apart by the jagged rocks. Over the roar of the approaching wave, I heard an audible voice shout in my ear, "Get down and cling to that rock."
Get down and cling to that rock!
I grabbed hold of a nearby 2-foot-wide boulder just as the monstrous wave crashed down on me. The force was incredible, and it took all of my strength to not get ripped away by the water. Then my surroundings instantly changed, and I found myself out of my body inside a tunnel of light. It wasn't a bright white light, but more like a yellow heat lamp. It felt like I was wrapped in a warm blanket, and I felt extremely happy. I saw 2 men in robes standing about 10 feet above me in the tunnel, and I instinctively knew them. One was my grandpa, Keith Daybell, and the other was my great-great-great-grandpa, Finity Daybell. They had died before I was born, but it was like reuniting with old friends. I levitated up the tunnel to where they were, and the tunnel opened up into a room. They smiled at me, but they seemed to be in a hurry. Keith began speaking to me and gesturing with his hands. He mentioned my 5 children and the roles they would play in the future. It was a strange conversation, since Tammy and I only had 1 child at the time. Keith also explained the tasks I needed to accomplish in my lifetime. As he talked, I saw snippets of future events on a set of screens in front of me. The rush of images was almost overwhelming. It felt like they were being downloaded into my mind. Keith asked me if I would be willing to fulfill the assignments he had outlined, and I agreed to do so. Finity didn't speak because he was keeping an eye on my body, which was now tumbling among the rocks. I could also see my body, but I had lost all interest in it. I was too busy enjoying this family reunion.
What?
Then I saw Finity give a nod to Keith, who made a motion with his hand. I was suddenly back in my body, which had washed closer to the beach. I felt wrapped in a soft, protective cushion, as another wave propelled me over the rocks and onto the beach. I credit this cushion for helping me escape additional serious injuries. Then the pain hit me. I looked at my hands and saw my fingertips were shredded from being ripped away from the rock. The left side of my back had large bloody gashes, and I had a deep cut on my chin. My family helped me to the car and took me to the hospital to be examined. I didn't have any broken bones, but I got a lot of stitches. This brief adventure out of my body felt like an urgent business meeting where Grandpa Keith poured information into me, while Finity allowed the meeting to go on just long enough before I would have drowned. It seemed like there should have been an easier way, but I guess they seized the opportunity.
I've been in some really bad business meetings, I guess.
Were you ever, what is it with Chad here and not learning his lesson on water sports?
It's good point.
Why is it like he's constantly in rocks, off of cliffs, and being torn away into the ocean?
It's a recurring theme with him, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like this man hasn't learned, and he's been lucky. I don't like why of all the constant ways of possibly dying. I don't know. Maybe that's a more common one of, I don't know. I just find it interesting that he's constantly in water and nearly dying every time.
Well, do you ever have moments, dreams, things like that where you're actually going to die in your dream? I mean, I always do that with flying. I'm always in a plane. And I'm the pilot, and I'm always like going into places.
If you're the pilot, we're all going down.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're all in a lot of trouble.
Have you ever? No, I mean, I can't say I've had death dreams where I've died. I mean, I don't remember exactly how, but yeah, you die in the dream, and then I've had one where I'm like literally in the casket, and I can and they're like lowering me down, and then I hear like the dirt being put on top of it, and I'm like, wait a second,
I'm not dead yet.
That's a freaky thing, but actually that used to happen. That's why the old term for whom Saved by the Bell, for whom the bell tolls is one of it, because they would put, before they could really fully identify if someone was dead or not, they'd have a string down to the casket, and if somebody woke up and they weren't truly dead, they could ring the bell, and then you could dig them up, and hopefully they still had oxygen. Yeah. I wonder how many times those bells ring, and then you're like digging, and they're dead, but it just was like a fish after you catch it, and it's dead, and it kind of flops around a little bit. And
humans do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wonder how many times that took place.
I want to say this, trigger number 3, ladies and gentlemen, trigger number 3 today, talking about dying but not dying and bells on my finger.
Chad was a gravekeeper.
He was what?
He was a gravekeeper. Literally, he worked the cemetery. He dug graves. That was one of his jobs as an adult. Like, fairly recent to all this stuff happening. That's what he did.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Add another one to the Chad Daybell category of
write
weird
that one
shit.
down.
Yeah. Let's keep going on Chad's letter.
I was pretty banged up, so Tammy and I decided to end our trip at that point and head home. On the drive back to Ogden, I told her about what had happened with Keith and Finity. She was very intrigued and started asking many questions. As she did so, the snippet pertaining to each question would play in my mind. I told her about the 5 kids, and she was happy about that. She asked when they would be born, and I explained I hadn't been given any dates, but I had seen we would have 3 kids in Ogden before moving back to Springville, so we estimated we had at least a few more years living in Ogden. Once we returned home, most of the snippets were taken from my mind, and even now I only have access to them on a need-to-know basis. Tammy and I wished we'd talked more about it on the trip home and found out more, but we would have one answer soon enough. Little did we know during our trip that Tammy was already pregnant with our 2nd child, and the 3rd one would quickly follow. I had seen enough in the spirit world snippets to raise my curiosity about one future job option, but it seemed highly unlikely to happen anytime soon. During my sophomore and junior years at BYU, I had a part-time job at the Springville Evergreen Cemetery. During the school year, I would attend classes in the morning and work there in the afternoons. Then I would work full-time during the summer. Over time, all of my brothers also worked there, so it became a family tradition in a way. The cemetery sexton was Denny Pickering, and he supervised all of the cemetery operations. And these tasks included sprinkler repair, lawn maintenance, digging and filling graves, coordinating with mortuaries and headstone companies, and helping families purchase burial plots. I became Denny's assistant and took care of these matters when he went on vacation. In the summer, there was a 5-person crew to help maintain the cemetery, but in the winter, it was just the 2 of us. I shoveled a lot of snow. About 2 years after my La Jolla Cove experience, and soon after our 3rd child was born, my brother called to tell me Denny had announced his retirement. The city was looking for his replacement, and my brother thought I might be interested in applying for the job, since I had knowledge and experience other candidates might not have. This would definitely be an unusual career change, but Tammy and I felt it was the right time to make a move. I interviewed for the position and was hired the next week. When things fell into place so quickly, we knew it was the right decision. So with our growing family, we moved back to Springville in late 1995. Bookshelf. The late 1980s and through the 1990s were a unique time when truths about the spirit world were being revealed from seemingly every direction. The Berlin Wall came down, and the rapid changes in the Soviet Union brought feelings of hope and peace as we headed toward the new millennium. A spiritual awakening emerged across the world as these life-changing events unfolded. Angels were a major topic of conversation on daily talk shows, and TV programs such as Touched by an Angel were very popular. Meanwhile, dozens of books about angels and visits from the other side filled the nation's bestseller lists. Many of these books were written by LDS church members who either shared their own personal experiences or who compiled the experiences of others. Here are some of the more notable spiritual books written by LDS authors during that time. Embraced by the Light by Betty Eady, I Stand All Amazed by Elaine Durham, The Message by Lance Richardson, I Saw Heaven by Lawrence Tooley, the Beyond the Veil series by Lee Nelson, Coming from the Light by Sarah Hinsey, Echoes of Eternity by Arvin Gibson, The Life Before by Brent L. Topp. After my second near-death experience, I devoured these books and many others like them. I felt I had discovered a group of people who could relate to what I'd been through. Each one of these books is excellent, covering heavenly topics from different angles, but with the same general theme of a vast world beyond this one. I later had the privilege of getting to know and work on books with Lee Nelson and Sarah Hinze. They are among the best people I've been associated with. Lee is a good-hearted, down-to-earth cowboy, and Sarah is a sweet, kind, thoughtful person. She's a true angel herself. Musical notes.
There we go.
Suddenly, after 3 years at the Standard Examiner, I was Springville's cemetery sexton at age 27. Although I'd been anticipating a transition back to my hometown after the birth of our 3rd child, I was surprised at which job had opened up. I had been looking at jobs in Utah County related to my communications/journalism degree. I had actually been offered a position on the Provo Daily Herald staff a couple of months earlier, but it didn't feel right, and I turned it down. The cemetery job had been in the back of my mind, but I figured Denny Pickering wasn't going to retire anytime soon. Denny stayed on the job during my first 2 weeks to overlap a bit and answer any questions I might have. It was great to reconnect with him. My brothers and I always regarded him with great respect, but also as a wise guru, because he would share various sayings and phrases about life that were equally puzzling and profound. He would often tell us, enjoy. That's it. No elaboration or explanation. If we asked, enjoy what? He would simply repeat, enjoy, and walk away. I finally decided Denny meant for us to enjoy each moment and appreciate life. So I pass on that message to you. Enjoy. After Denny's final 2 weeks, I was on my own. I tried to not feel overwhelmed at first. The Springville Evergreen Cemetery is very large with thousands of headstones. People sometimes think the sexton job is easy, but as I described in the letter, there are many responsibilities tied to the position. But I quickly adapted and enjoyed the sunshine and fresh air after sitting at a desk and staring at a computer screen for 3 years. The biggest change for me was being much more aware of the otherworldly nature of the profession. When I had worked at the cemetery during college, I hadn't had my La Jolla Cove near-death experience yet. Any spirit world interactions at the cemetery had been rare before, but now I could feel there were plenty of friends hanging out in the cemetery. When I was alone in the cemetery building, I often sensed visitors from the great beyond joining me. On bad weather days, I would work in my office to catch up on my record keeping, and invariably I'd soon notice the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. It was as if someone was leaning over my shoulder reading what I had written. I know these ghostly friends didn't mean any harm, and I would smile when I'd return from my lunch break to find my pen had been moved across the desk from where I'd left it. Sometimes I would arrive in the morning and see that my day planner was already turned to the correct day. That must have taken a lot of effort. I generally sensed 5 male spirits hanging around me. I understood they had lived in Springville many years earlier and had been friends during their mortal lives. They considered themselves the guardians of the cemetery, and I appreciated their help. But there were days when I just had to say, guys, get out of here. I'm trying to get some work done. And they would oblige. A few years ago, Rick Astley released a gospel album titled 50. Yes, the Together Forever singer from the 1980s, who is now well known for the Rick Roll internet phenomenon. The album is fun and joyful, especially the song Angels on My Side. Rick sings, I got angels, you got angels, everybody got their angels on their side. Everything's gonna be all right. I dedicate the song to my cemetery friends from 30 years ago who watched over me, and also to my current friends who I sense are helping me and protecting me now. Yes, Rick, everything's gonna be all right.
It's not that song, but it's Rick. Can we sing along? Are you all ready? She's taking my time, convince me she's fine, but when she leaves, I'm not so sure. It's always the same. Okay, we can do this one, or we can do...
You actually are a better singer than I realized.
Oh, he's a great singer.
Yeah. She wants to dance.
I don't know this one.
Woo! She wants to dance with me. Remember this one?
It's kind of like I'm going to dance with somebody.
This was like, there's a girl. Are we there yet? Oh, we're not there yet. I have to.
You can crush in the karaoke.
There's a girl I've been waiting to see, and I really get the feeling she likes me, cause she said so, but not so many words. I've got to tell you what I've heard. It's been a long time since I've heard it. She don't want no wild romance when she's with me. She only wants to dance. She wants to dance with me. There you go.
I didn't know he was that good of a singer. That was like the reason why you don't know that one, Stacey. That was like third down in the singles. It only did fairly well, and then it never tested well after that.
Yeah.
We played the hell out of it, though.
I know that one, and also what is the Cry one that we
Cry for Help?
Cry
That's
for
a good one.
I love that song. That was my first radio station. We played the hell out of that song.
Y96 FM.
That's right.
I think I probably had the single, the actual album in my garage for many a years because I took all the 45s out of that building.
Probably.
No, I liked Rick Astley. I mean, I know everybody knows him for Rickroll, but he had some good songs. Anyway, now that we got to do a little Rick Astley karaoke this morning, Angels Among Us. I know this song, but I don't know it well. So there you go, tying in a little Rick Astley.
Can we try to guess who he's going to come up with next week for musical artist in the spotlight?
Yeah, I mean, he seems to hit the 80s a lot. So I'm going to guess we're going to stay there.
He's a Gen Xer. I can feel it.
So we had Whitney, right?
Yep.
Who else did we kind of had
feel like we need some heart.
Oh, he might go big and go Michael Jackson. What do you think? If he invokes Prince, I'm out. You don't touch Prince, Daybell.
That'd be great. Little Red Corvette or something?
No, I was thinking 1999.
1999.
That's kind of like the Rapture.
Cream.
Pussy Control.
Pussy Control.
God.
Come on. I actually listened to that the other day.
He's like, and then Tammy, I had to get Tammy under Pussy Control.
Billy Jack, bitch.
Well, I think anything is possible with Chad Daybell in terms of where he's going to go. Has any of this, let me ask you this, has any of this helped you better understand why there were children melted in buckets in his backyard?
Not one shred. How about you, Todd?
Oh, well, I'm sitting here going, this guy's nuts.
I think it explains everything. I mean, he's laying it out for us. I don't know where this, I mean, what I wonder about is because there's other people involved in posting these. Chad doesn't have the access to just post it, so I believe he sends it to one of his kids and they post it. What the hell do you think is going on in their minds?
And why does he think that he's so important that people want to know? Because this is just bullshit stuff that he's sharing with us.
Yeah.
And ghosts at the cemetery and he gets hurt in the water and all that kind of stuff. Like, why does he think that we want to know this? Like anybody wants to have this information? Because
he's a narcissist. He thinks that we care about him.
Well, we're sitting here talking about it.
Oh, yeah, we are. There goes my argument.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's two things going on here. He thinks we want to know about it because it's going to lead to our eternal salvation because Chad's going to tell us the way. And we want to hear it because it's utterly batshit crazy. And I think those two opposing things, they keep going, they end in the same way. And it ends with us listening to it, going, this is crazy. But the outcome is different. Chad doesn't really get to see that part of it, though. Gravekeeper. Would you ever take that job? It sounded like it was kind of a job that he was, just kind of took initially to kind of make some money, and then it ends up being kind of a career path for him for a while.
Well, it obviously played into his hobbies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, would you ever take that job? Would you be a groundskeeper, essentially, at a cemetery?
I can't imagine it would be like any other. I mean, it's a job. It's something that needs to be done. I mean, it's a little creepy, but it's, you take a look at funeral directors and, sometimes we cringe, like, how could you do that for a living? Mm-hmm. Well, it needs to be done. And it needs, a kind, caring person. Now, I don't know. Maybe he liked taking care of grass and things like that. It just so happens he liked dead bodies. He's a unique individual.
I think it'd be a pain in the ass to mow a cemetery.
Oh my God. Yeah. And that's why they don't like tombstones that are above the grass anymore. I mean, I get that, right? Families get upset about it. You can't leave tributes. The two things that I almost became was a pastor, and then also a mortuary guy. What do they call
mortician?
Funeral director?
Yeah.
I wanted to learn that whole thing, but then you had to go to school for a long time, and I'm not really a school kind of person, so I got into radio instead.
What drew you to the idea of being a mortician?
That macabre part of me that likes the spooky and the odd, and I do like helping people genuinely. Sure. But I think there's just that creepiness that goes along with it.
Well, had you ever had any experiences like with bodies up until that point? Okay.
No. It was kind of from afar. I think there was a time in my life where I had a lot of death in the family, a lot of grandparents and uncles and aunts dying and stuff like that. And you're kind of sitting there going, this is kind of interesting, and maybe that was the whole pastor thing too, where it was, I don't know.
I mean, you are helping people.
What did you say, Stacey?
The mystique of death. It's something that you don't know much about. We don't really learn about it. I know I had a class in, must have been 10th grade. We went and toured a funeral home. I remember being thrown into the back of a hearse by a guy named Paul. Paul is a very sweet individual. He didn't mean anything by it.
Obviously, yeah.
But that kind of scarred me for a long time. Sorry, Paul.
You got thrown in, and this was on like the class trip to the funeral home?
We went into the garage where the hearses were, and Paul's just this towering individual. He's like 6'2", 6'3", and he picked me up. I'm only 4'9". Picked me up, threw me in the back of the hearse, and shut the door.
How old were you?
10th grade.
Oh, wow.
So like what, 15?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was effing terrifying. And like, because there's no latch to get out, guys. Not in that
they probably
hearse,
don't need
there
that,
wasn't.
do they? Yeah.
So I had to crawl to the front and get out that way. But the whole time it was just like, oh my God, I was just where the bodies go. And so it scared me a lot. And I had a little bit of a fascination with death after that.
It's an interesting class trip.
Yeah.
What?
It's an interesting class trip.
Right? Well,
like,
we did a lot of weird. We toured cemeteries, and yeah, it was. I think it was like a lifestyle class. We cooked and sewed, and then went and did shit like that.
We had like that, but had nothing to do with like mortuaries and death. And we did sewing, and then there was like a cooking unit, and then there was, I don't know, something else that was domestic-ish in there. But wow. What I wonder, because I remember a lot of class trips, it was usually because somebody's parent worked there or owned the business. Yeah. So was one of your classmates, did their parents own the funeral home or whatever?
No, we just went to one of the biggest ones in the Twin Cities. And then we toured, I think it's called Lakewood Cemetery. I could be wrong, but there's a ton of celebrities and big business moguls buried there in Minneapolis. That's quite the mecca for big names. I mean, like I think Pillsbury's buried there. Maybe the founder of the Marvel
Trip. The Pop and Fresh guys buried there.
Right? Yeah, he comes out at night.
Often hear that.
Can't see him during the day.
Like, what's that? What's this weird sound I'm hearing from the mausoleum? And then suddenly Snuggle Bear comes out of the ground too. You're being chased by a cemetery with Snuggle Bear and the Pillsbury Doughboy.
So in my defense, though, I will say that shifted then into ghost hunting and paranormal interest, but that really wasn't available when I was younger because the ghost hunters weren't out and all that kind of stuff. It was Ed and Lorraine Warren, and everybody thought they were weird. So wanting to be a pastor or getting into the mortuary business was my way of, kind of dealing with that side of my life. That was kind of weird.
Kind of
now
dealing
look at where you are.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with death, but also seeing how it provided a service. Because I mean, funeral services, they and morticians and all that. It is a kind of macabre job, but if you're in it for the right reasons, you're doing a lot of help to a lot of people in a very, very difficult point in their life. Unless, of course, you own Back to Nature in Colorado.
Oh, there's that.
And you're putting hundreds of people on defunct Kmart shelves in your mortuary until they turn into goo. Then it's not quite as Back to Nature as you want it to be. But definitely an interesting career path. I can't say I've ever wanted to do any. I don't know. I've never wanted to do anything like too odd. I've wanted to do radio. That's all I've done. So I can't say that, but I can say I don't think it would be a bad job to go over and be the groundskeeper at a cemetery. I enjoy walking through them. I always have. I've enjoyed hanging out. There's actually a cemetery right down the road from me. And it's one of those, it's like, it's in the middle of the city and it's been there since there was no city. And you can tell it was once a country cemetery and all the graves in there are way beyond anyone visiting because the people who would have known them are also dead.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because it gets really grown over. And people have gone in there with their own lawnmowers and tried to, take care of it. But the problem with it is this is not a flat stone cemetery. This is old. So I think a lot of people go in there with the right intention. And then 5 blades later, they're like, maybe there's a reason we don't mow in here. But,
almost need a weed whacker.
You do. And you need Chad Daybell. You need more Chad Daybells out there. Taking care of it, listening to Rick Astley.
Well, with his ghosty experiences, I'm surprised you haven't had him on the Ghost Story show. You should see if you can get him for an interview.
Chad?
Yeah.
Why not? I'm sure that's, go sit down. Maybe him and Lori together. We could all sit together and have a cup of coffee together and discuss the dead. Well, there you go. Chad Daybell. Let's shift gears for a moment, but I think maybe I'll ask Bob here in a second. Bob Mata joining us, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries. We were just wrapping up a conversation about Chad Daybell, listening to his letters. Did you know Chad Daybell is a big fan of Rick Astley?
I did not.
Yes, we learned that in letter number 6. He's so we did a little karaoke this morning. I'm sorry you missed that. It was kind of fun.
Not as sorry as I am, Tony. Not as sorry as I. Hey, Stacy, how are you?
I've been jamming out to some Rick Astley. Life is good, man.
We found out this morning that Tony's a damn good singer, Bob. I didn't know that until this morning.
Didn't you know all of us deep like bassy guys can all croon a bit? It's our secret weapon. People just don't know it about us. So it does not surprise me at all.
I have this microphone. If you're watching us on YouTube, it's this Shure 55. If you've seen any images lately, it's the old retro looking microphone. I love this mic so much. I bought a second one, and it's in I have a movie room over there, which we use for karaoke more than we do movies. And it's all set up there, so I croon Rick Astley into that quite often.
I bet you do.
By myself with the pets while Harper goes, I'm going to bed.
Security cameras, what you do when you think nobody's watching.
We don't put security cameras in the karaoke room. What happens in the karaoke room stays in the karaoke room.
Like Vegas. I hate to expose my ignorance in terms of Rick Astley, but what's his go-to number one song that everyone would know from him?
Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh, never gonna give. All right, I'm with you.
Yes,
never gonna give you up. Yep. Rickrolled.
All right, I'm with you.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, Bob, we almost had to disconnect you, man.
Oh man.
Almost had to let you go.
Glad we got that under control.
Oh my God. Yeah, that surprisingly, that does not shock me that Chad was into that.
We've learned his musical taste. Whitney, we got the whole list. So we'll have a Chad.
Van Halen. He's into Van Halen too.
Van Halen. Oingo Boingo. Another one of his. There's a lot on the Chad Daybell playlist.
Oingo Boingo during the that great run of 80s movies was pretty prevalently used in a lot of soundtracks back then.
Yes.
And it's the soundtrack to Chad's life.
Yes, it is.
That's the most important.
In prison, waiting.
Exactly. He's listening to the Oingo Boingo. Let's move over to Sandra Birchmore. Dateline just did a special on this the other night. If you've not watched it and you want to kind of get caught up on this case, it's a good kind of entry-level place to go in and kind of get a general understanding of what's going on here. She was just 23 years old. She was pregnant and excited about her future when she was found dead in her Canton, Massachusetts apartment in February of 2021. At first, her death was ruled a suicide, but the truth was far darker. For over a decade, Sandra had been groomed and sexually exploited by Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell, allegedly, starting when she was only 14 years old, and entangled with other members of the department as well. Those other entanglements allegedly happened after she was 18. Because, that makes it so much better. Just weeks before she died, Sandra told Farwell she was carrying his child. Prosecutors now say Farwell strangled her and staged the scene to look like a suicide, silencing her forever to protect himself. 3 years later, the FBI charged Farwell with murder, accusing him not just of abuse, but of covering his tracks with the knowledge of someone trained in law enforcement. Other officers connected to Sandra, Farwell's twin brother William, Deputy Chief Robert Devine, and Animal Control Officer Joshua Heel have been forced out of policing or face decertification. Though only Matthew Farwell now stands accused of the murder. Sandra's story is not just about her tragic death, but it's about the systematic abuse that was going on and what went on to protect it and allowed it to fester for so long. Bob, I know you've been following this along with many other stories in that part of the country, as it seems that there's a lot of intermingling of cast members here. Let's go all the way back to Farwell for folks who don't know much about this case, and all the way back to the Police Explorer program. What's the earliest we know about their interactions?
I mean, it started when she was very young, and she got into the Police Explorer program, which is, kind of a community outreach program that I think in the minds of law enforcement is kind of selling the concept of maybe becoming a cop when you're older, and it's an outreach to the community as well. And they encourage kids to come in. And in that program, you're interacting with police. They're showing you some kind of basic procedural stuff. And, you're building a rapport with your local law enforcement agency. So that was how Sandra was introduced into this whole situation. And, from there, it just got really, really scary and ugly.
Yeah. And I mean, this abuse went on for years. Eventually, the parents are the ones who said, wait a second, we don't think her death was a suicide. And they called it out in the form of a civil lawsuit, which then eventually got the feds involved because, hey, local law enforcement wasn't investigating it because they were involved in it. Yeah. Let's go to the nexus of that, of how this went on for so many years. And in this case specifically, were there any signs? Did anybody realize that the abuse was taking place prior to her turning 18?
I would have to think so. I think it's impossible for somebody to groom somebody of that age if you have parents that are paying attention at all. All I can do as a parent of 4 children is look at things through my own lens and think about whether or not something like that happening over years would fall off my radar, or I wouldn't be like, why is this guy communicating with you? Why are you meeting this grown man at various times that don't seem to make it? I'd be all over it, but in terms of other people that were within the program with her, and I'm talking about kids her age, all the way to the other officers that were working in that program. I think it's highly unlikely, don't you? That no one had any idea that this kind of grooming was going on. I mean, when you see an inappropriate relationship, I think all of us, when we're like, you'll kind of like first, if it's somebody you don't know, but you kind of see something and you're like, oh, that seems weird. It's like, it's either that guy is like that kid's daughter, and if they look to be kind of interacting in a way that goes beyond normal parent-child interaction in terms of affection, and it happens to be somewhere you see it, you notice it. Yeah. I think we all do.
Well, you hope you notice it. And I think a lot of us do notice it, but I feel like a lot of people don't notice it. And that's what I wonder about, a case like this. And I'm not trying to cast any sort of negativity on the family or anything like that, because they're victims here, obviously, too, of all of this. But when you see this member of the community, so a police officer, Police Explorer program, you think, okay, well, this is a good thing. And in a lot of cases, it is. This sort of things don't happen everywhere. But when it does happen, and you see the officer Farwell, who went above and beyond, is what it's going to be looked at as, oh, he's above and beyond. He's really trying to help this girl out, showing up to the library, help her study, do this or that outside of the Police Explorer program. Nobody's seeing this as weird. The guy's in his mid-20s at this point. She's 14 or something. That's not normal. There's not mid-20-some-year-old, upper 20-some-year-old men going to the library to help 14-year-olds study. For any other reason other than they want something inappropriate, unless it's like your brother. I don't really see any reason why anyone, and I don't see how one wouldn't look at that, even if you have the purest of intentions, that you wouldn't go, people might look at this as being something weird. I shouldn't do that. That's
the red
inappropriate.
flags are what's getting me. And I'm coming from a place of, if you've ever been in a relationship and you see another woman texting your husband over and over and over and over and over again, you should be seeing something and kind of going, some of this isn't making sense to me. Now, if you're seeing somebody texting your daughter, that shouldn't be making sense to you. I don't care if they're in a program like this. They shouldn't be getting multiple texts. That's not a proper form of communication. Again, you've got to follow your gut instinct. If you see something that feels like a red flag, investigate it.
Is it because there's so many people, we base our own experience, we base how we're going to handle our experiences, our new experiences in life, on our own experiences in life? Is it because at a different place in time, in the 70s and the 80s, 90s, we've been, as individuals, sometimes close to the fire, if you will, sometimes burned by the fire as well, but sometimes close to it, that we go, well, you know, they're just doing this. It's just that. It's just somebody that wants to help study. And we don't see it because we've lived it, and it worked out okay for us. So what could possibly be weird over here, until you find out more about what that person is truly up to? Maybe we didn't experience the full breadth of what their intentions were with the individuals that maybe we have interacted with in life. So we don't want to believe that there's this type of human being out there that would be doing these sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly true. It's exactly what I was saying about, you know, the fact that I'm a father, and that's my lens, but we also have our life experience lens, right? Everything that we view through the lens of what our experience has been throughout life. So yeah, I think that, and we're, you know, especially folks our age, we're coming out of a much different time. You know, when we were kids, child abuse wasn't really talked about like it is now.
No.
You know, I mean, it just wasn't. And it was, and I'm talking not only physical, but like SA as well. You know, none of it was really discussed. So yeah, I think that's kind of, but that's a little bit of the same argument is, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child type thing. We're like, you know, back in my days, you know, my dad would put me over the knee, you know, and it's like, we don't do that anymore. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, we've evolved in terms of being human beings and understanding that our children are nothing more than small adults. They're little people, you know, and they have feelings and they have opinions, and all of that matters, you know. So I think we've evolved in the sense that we understand, we have a different understanding of children, and how our duty to protect them is heightened because of exactly what we're looking at here with Birchmore, which is this grooming. And, you know, grooming is a word that a lot of people throw around that I get the sense that people really don't understand breadth of it, you know, just how deep it runs and what it is. It's like, it's one of those words that kind of appeared 7 to 8 years ago, you know, and has really kind of been used ad nauseum now, to where I don't think that people are getting the full sense of what it is, just how incredibly evil it is. Because you know, the things that you see with any kind of grooming relationship is that it's always an authority figure, somebody that's in a position to where they can exert authority over another person, whether it's a child, whether it's somebody that's disabled in some way, whether it's a teacher to a student, you know, even in college, you know, whether it's somebody, I mean, frankly, if you're an employer employing somebody, you know, you can groom them as well as your employees. We're talking about adults. I mean, it's always that position of power where you have the ability to be able to kind of control something that other person does, but that's not what it is. It's not a threat thing. It's this thing where you know, the groomer builds trust and this relationship with the victim. And usually it's easier for these people, but when it's a child, because children want to trust adults. No, they're taught to trust adults. They're taught to trust their parents, and their parents are the ones that are raising them. And so I think innately almost they have this trust that they feel for adults. And when you have wicked people out there exploiting that for their own gain, and when I'm saying gains, I'm talking about in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
You know, that's how these situations with this grooming occurs. I mean, we talked about it last week with that Aaron Spencer case, man. It was the same thing. I mean, that guy was 67 years old.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's like an old man, you know, that's grooming a 13-year-old kid. And if you sit, you know, you're sitting on your couch listening to this, you're like, well, I don't even understand how that happens. Well, exactly.
Yeah, but it happens everywhere, and it happens all the time. And it's not just, you know, it can be anything. It's not just, you know, male on female or female on male. It can be anything at all for whatever that sick person's goals are. And groomers, they're out there, they're grooming away at everything they can do. And I'll share a story here in a minute of an experience I had where it never went to any place far by any means. But when I look back on it, I go, that person was attempting that.
Yeah.
That person was attempting that with me. I was a kid. I didn't realize it till later, till I looked at a headline off of the Associated Press one day and went, I think we know him.
Wow.
And Todd will remember this, maybe.
I knew exactly where you were going with it.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So back in the day, 96-ish, I'm 14, 15, working at the radio station. We had a nighttime show on. Everybody knows Delilah. It wasn't Delilah that did anything. We had a local guy. We call him the Love Doctor.
Oh, God.
Wow.
And it was like a local version of a love song show. And a lot of radio stations like in the 90s had these sort of things. It wasn't crazy. It was like a very normal type programming for adult contemporary radio in the evenings. You play Michael Bolton, all that shit. Anyway, he pre-records his show. I'm this eager 14, 15-year-old who can't wait to do anything around the radio station. And he comes in to record like once or twice a week for the whole week. And I'm wrapping up my day. I can't drive anywhere yet. Like, hey, you know, when I'm done recording, you know, want to grab McDonald's and I'll drop you off back at home? Sure. I think nothing of it. I'm like, it's another radio guy. He seems nice. And he did. I mean, I did not feel anything weird or creepy about this guy until years later, until I found out what the hell he did to other people. So there were several times we'd go to McDonald's, he'd drop me off. One of the last times he dropped me off, he asked if I could get him, remember the America Online CDs or discs?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like,
yeah,
like 60 free hours or whatever. Do you got any of those? You know, I'm like, yeah, I think I might. Like, I usually throw them out because we would get them in mass quantity. Yeah. He's like, and then he starts to tell me, yeah, you know, I'd like to go and look at, you know, naked ladies on the internet with these. And this is, you know, early internet days, like 97, 98-ish. Yeah. And I'm just like, so this is kind of weird that this guy is talking to me about like what he likes to look at, you know, like, okay. And I didn't go and go to McDonald's with him anymore after that, because I got a weird vibe. I felt there was something weird about it. Well, about I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months later, he's not working at the station anymore. We start running Delilah, so there's no need for him. We're sitting at the way the news came in was on the Associated Press computer. We had one computer in the newsroom, and that's where you got news from. And one of the headlines came up, this man's name, arrested. He was also a big brother, you know, as in the program, Big Brothers Big Sisters. And he was arrested because he was sharing that sort of material with children that were sleeping over at his house.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know any more about what happened after that, but I can tell you I was thoroughly creeped out. I mean, I didn't know. Did you get any weird vibes off of that guy, Todd? I never really, I don't know. Maybe I was too young.
He seemed really normal, right? Great radio guy, seemed really personable, no issues with him. So when that came out, I was like blown away.
Yeah. I mean, and it's scary just how that's sort of like nobody saw anything of it. There was another gentleman that some of us worked with or knew of in radio that ended up driving to like South Carolina or something to try and meet up. Yeah.
Yep.
He was another one. I had an office next to him in Oshkosh at Cumulus. And he was a big radio guy known in the market forever. Really just, I never got any weird vibes. And I don't know. I usually think I do get, but maybe I don't. But he was always just kind of like dad-like, nothing creepy, nothing weird. All of a sudden, the guy goes and drives across the country because he's been grooming and having a conversation with a supposed like 13, 14-year-old. It was an FBI agent. And there goes the rest of his life. But it's so creepy. I mean, these people are out there, and we don't want to admit it, and you don't want to be cautious of every single human being that's just trying to be a decent person around you and your children. Not everybody who's being nice is a predator, but if you don't know the person and you've had a run-in or two with folks like this in your life, it's hard not to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is you have to be.
Yeah.
It's because they exist, and they're not so far and few between that it's like we can't just kind of say, oh, well, that's an exception to the rule. I don't want to necessarily say it's the rule, but it's kind of the rule, and I've been coaching. I coach my daughter's softball team, and like even me as a parent, I'm hyper conscious about not doing anything that the parents would construe as being over. Like I've been coaching kids in sports for a long time, and I'm an affectionate guy, and I like to hug kids around their shoulder, but it's like you can't really, and it's a shame because those of us that are good people, that it's important to show kids support and affection like that. Right. That kind of killed it for all of us that aren't creeps.
You have to be hyper aware of the optics.
You really do, in every sense, especially if it's male coach to female player.
Correct.
And I would say this, and what I find interesting about that observation, like responsible, non-creepy adults are going to be hyper aware of the optics. Yeah. It's the ones that have zero awareness of the optics and seem to be pushing that line, and you're like, I'm sorry, that seemed like a really weird hug with that 16-year-old over there.
Yeah, right.
That seemed a little too long. They're the ones who have, I mean, it's like that is a red flag. If you're not aware of the optics and you're just going to go, well, fuck it, this is how it was it's not back in your day. Right. We're in a very different place in time. So you better be aware of these optics or you're going to be looked at that. I mean, it kind of comes with the territory of life of, well, it's not 1988 anymore.
Exactly. In the leagues, if you're talking about little league, they're hyper conscious about it.
Sure.
They understand. And you go through, some kind of training in terms of just from all of it, from like being like overly aggressive in terms of your coaching style and yelling at the kids, or, and obviously when you have, male coaches coaching, and frankly, when my daughter said, I want to try softball out when she was young, like 8, like I always wanted, not for the reasons that I was worried that if she was around a male coach that I'd have to be like a hawk watching it, but more because I just wanted my daughter to be coached by a female who had played softball because of relatability, that they're going to listen to that person more just because she looks like her, what I'm saying?
Sure.
So for me, that was always something that I was, thriving to do, or striving to do rather, in terms of who she was going to be coached with. But I also like to be a part of her life, and I enjoy doing that. So, but I also hate parent coaches typically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So they're but yeah, I think that it's just such a different time that we live in, that you have to be cognizant of what's going on around you. And like Stacy said, using kind of the example of, a wife who's got a husband that's kind of curled up at the other end of the couch all the time and seems to be texting somebody, and you're like, well, who the fuck are you texting, dude? Oh, no one, man. I'm just texting Jim, and then the wife has to creep in the phone because she's got major red flags, and women can typically sense when their dude's doing some shit like that.
Sure.
And and with parents, it's easier. I know that kids should have privacy to a certain extent, but at the same time, they're still children. I'm my 13-year-old. We track exactly who she can and can't text. It's got to go through. So she was begging and begging and begging. I want to be on Snapchat. All my friends are on Snapchat. So then we have to research, how do we control keeping creeps out, so because they're out there. I mean, the predators in terms of online is where it's really, really scary.
It is.
That's harder to monitor than the things that are going on in real life. Now, I mean, with like Sandra's case, everybody let her down. Like every single person that was an adult that was involved in her life. And again, like I'm with you, Tony, I'm not blaming the parents, but every single person that was an adult in that child's life let her down.
Yeah.
And it turned out the worst way possible. So
I mean, it literally took civil litigation to uncover the foundational pattern of a crime. Yeah, that there really wasn't a criminal investigation in any of this. It was all completely overlooked. How often is that where it takes the civil litigation to finally unearth the reality of what took place here?
I mean, I wouldn't pretend to know the exact answer as to how frequently that is, but when you get a case where you've gone to where there's been an outcry of some sort, and typically what they'll do is they'll bring you, if your child makes an outcry, and they'll say, okay, we're going to bring you in for a what they call a CAC interview, which is the child advocacy, and they have different names from all over. But in Illinois, they call it the Child Advocacy Center, and essentially you're meeting there with somebody who's trained to try to elicit information in terms of what the outcry is. They're typically not straight up law enforcement, but they're law enforcement adjacent, and they are not usually in a room with a cop, because they're trying to get information from that child. But the first thing you have to do is you have to build rapport, and you want that child to feel comfortable to the extent where they're going to be open and honest about, what they're saying happened. So if you have that type of situation where you go in and you do the CAC interview and they don't feel that they have enough and they don't bring a case, that's where you'll see these civil cases kind of pop up, and you'll go after them, and that's cases where you have families that don't think that they're getting justice and that law enforcement isn't doing it from their perspective, what they should be doing. And so then you bring the civil suit in order to try to shine more light on it, because there's two parts of it, right? There's the money part. If it doesn't involve some famous singer or some shit like we've been seeing recently, and you're bringing suit for two purposes. One, to out that singer or that artist or actor or whatever it may be, or somebody of note. And, you want the cash and you want to flamethrow them both. So it serves both purposes civilly. And what you hope, and because that's exactly what we saw with Diddy, right? I mean, it was like, it had to be the civil suits that finally got the feds say, all right, we're going to take a look at this. And that's typically where it is. If you have a situation where state law enforcement agencies are just refusing to do anything about it, filing those suits, especially if you file them in federal court, are a pretty good way, and even in state court, but it's going to put it on the radar of the feds in terms of, okay, what's going on here? So, I mean, it's an avenue. It's an avenue for victims to try to get their cases on law enforcement's radar, because I think that people just misconstrue exactly, how you go about getting law enforcement to try to really do something about what you're claiming is happening. So,
and how are you going to get law enforcement to look into this when it's their own officer that they need to be looking at, which is what exactly happened here. Local police department investigated one of its own, almost immediately ruled the death as suicide, case closed. So the civil suit opens up, and then that gets the feds looking at it. Ultimately, we go back to a medical examiner ruling this as suicide. Now, the medical examiner, it's not the officer. It's not Michael Farwell. Is not the one who ruled it as suicide. A medical, so another person has to be involved in this process. How the hell did that break down so much, where the medical examiner is saying, yes, this is a suicide, despite when they look back later, oh, wait a second, her bone's broken in her neck. There's signs of strangulation. There's all this other evidence around that point to it not being, but somehow somebody checked that box right when it took place. How do we get to that place? And then why is there no accountability for any of this? Because it clearly looks like, well, somebody along the line either made a really horrible judgment call on the death, or there was a reason they made that very horrible judgment call. And it wasn't because of their judgment. Yeah, no, I think that in the situation with the medical examiner, you know, when you have an ME in there doing an autopsy and there's a potential that it could be ruled a homicide, more often than not, you're going to have law enforcement in that room during the medical examiner's autopsy. And typically they're giving the ME information about what the scene looked like, you know, what they discovered at the scene in terms of, like, I mean, if they're going in there and they're saying, okay, well, there was a length of rope strung from, you know, like like whatever they would have claimed that she had hung herself from, some kind of thing, or a belt, or, you know, whatever they're claiming in terms of how she committed suicide, which obviously had to have been hanging herself, right? Because I mean, the strangulation part of it from a doorknob, right? Right, whatever the case may be. Like, you can't hang yourself. Like, it's like, what? Yeah. The whole point is that your fight or flight reflex can't be, you know, used in terms of, okay, I'm now sitting on the floor, I'm choking to death, I'm going to stand up because my body's going to make me do it. So that doesn't work, right? I mean, that's why people hang from a height, so that the feet can't touch. So yeah, that should have been a red flag for any ME. But I mean, the best I could guess, if it's from the just completely whiffed on the cause of death from the ME's perspective, is that they were fed information by whatever cop or cops were sitting in that autopsy with them during the autopsy, and they're like, all right, well, this, you know, this, I want to rule it out, you know, self-harm. Yeah. And if it's the other thing, then that's a whole different thing, right? And I think that there's an interesting piece to that too, because just as Farwell could have groomed and did groom Sandra Birchmore, could have groomed the medical examiner. 100%. Could have groomed, I mean, not necessarily in the same way, but they were manipulated, I guess would be more of the correct word to use in that sort of a context. But if it's a small town, everybody knows each other. The cops know the medical examiner from many other cases here and there. You're rubbing elbows all the time. And if you're the medical examiner and you're not twisted and you're not the one that's thinking somebody is going to be, you know, skewing this for their own weird, dark murder plot that took place here, you may be thinking, this person I've been working with for years seems to be a nice guy. Maybe had lunch with him, maybe this or that. We see him around. You're not thinking that they'd be doing this sort of thing. You're not walking in with that expectation. Just the same way, you know, 14-year-old Sandra is not thinking, this guy's going to try and sleep with me. You know, the same way any young person, same way I, at 14, 15, didn't think the guy that wanted to go take me to have McDonald's had any sort of other intention than being a radio person and wanting to take me to McDonald's. Until you learn later, oh, these people have other fucked up intentions. So that medical examiner, it doesn't always necessarily mean nefarious. It means they have a rapport with their coworkers, and this happens to be their job. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's easier to see that way than... But why didn't they look at the facts? I guess that's the thing. It's one thing to just go and say, well, they said this, but when you look at if you actually look at the evidence of her, you can see it. Why did they just gloss it? Well, they said it's this. Well, maybe it was this. Is it? You're a medical examiner. There's certain things that can be explained, and there's certain things that can't be explained. Yeah.
Feels like a cover up is what it feels like. I mean, at the end of the day, it feels like they were protecting their own.
It's a cover up, but who's all involved in that cover up, I guess, is a question. We know Farwell allegedly was, but was the medical examiner, or was it exactly that? Just really sloppy work and going along. Well, my colleague over here says this. Well, I'm going to go with that. I trust them, and blah, blah, blah. Done. Evidence be damned.
But that's what I'm saying. Like that thing where I'm talking about during an autopsy and there's a cop in there. And if it's your cops, yeah, you are going to have that rapport. Yeah, you are going to have that relationship with them. And, you're not necessarily, as the medical examiner, going to be challenging facts that they're telling you. I mean, Farwell went in there and he staged the thing to look like it was that she had hung herself. I mean, a medical examiner isn't going to say, well, that sounds like bullshit. Based on what I'm seeing here on the table and what you're telling me you found there at the scene, like that's not their role.
Well, and does the MA even have knowledge to look at a scene like that and go, this seems fishy?
Not that I'm aware of. Typically, I mean, MEs will show up at scenes for sure. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. And I think probably more often than not, if it's a scene wherein they're eventually going to be taking the bodies from the scene, the ME will show up. So in this case, I don't know if the ME ever showed up. If they went there, did their investigation, and then I would have assumed that when they decided to bring the body, like typically that's when the ME would come.
Yeah,
is when they get the scene processed, the medical examiner then shows up, or the county coroner, whoever it is that's dealing with it, and then they'll. But I don't know if they're going in and examining the scenes.
Yeah. That's just more of an investigative detective type work. And if those people that are doing that are the ones who perpetrated the crime, that's where you're.
That's how you see how this can happen. So I don't know. And I think it probably varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction in terms of what MEs are doing, in terms of I don't think that they're going in and necessarily, but they might be, because it's helpful. They should be, they're a different breed than the cops. We should be able to rely on medical examiners because they're supposed to be completely unbiased and objective in terms of determining what the cause of death is and the mode of death.
Look at Ellen Greenberg. I mean, there's a prime example of, wait a minute, this is supposed to be somebody who is, number one, a doctor, correct?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, your checks and balances go out the window when it's a good old boy system, which seems kind of like what this was. Well, I say it's this. Yeah, you're right. I believe. When the one's not, because at the end of the day, the medical examiner didn't do their job. They did not get to the results that another autopsy got to.
Right.
And that's simply, you didn't do your job.
Right.
I mean, are there any sort of consequence? I mean, I know there's probably not, and there usually isn't for many of these cases, but professional consequences a police department can face, or the medical examiner can face, when you got a federal investigation that proves that it actively ignored or covered up the evidence in the case, other than Farwell, who we know has been charged, but the other ones, well, you're giving up your ability to be a police officer for the rest of your life because it turns out you were pretty shady in this whole passing the girl around thing. Granted, she was of age, and it does appear that it was consensual when she was of age, but the ickiness, the ick factor is all there because these people are all intertwined. They're all friends, and this has been going. And Farwell, at least, we know, have been doing this since she was 14.
Yeah.
And then to stage the thing, I mean, it makes everybody wonder, well, did they know what was going on here? Are they aware that this was a cover-up of a murder? Do they really think that she killed herself? How deep do you think that this case went in terms of others being aware, or at least suspicious in that department, that Farwell murdered her?
I think when you kind of look at it, and when you were talking about it, seems to be kind of in the same kind of little area in Massachusetts where all this shit goes down. But you've got some of the same cops when you're talking about the communications between Birchmore and Farwell, when we're talking like 60, 70,000 text messages were somehow overlooked by one of the other cops in the department. I mean, when that kind of stuff's going on, I mean, common sense is going to dictate. Like the jig is up. You know, when the feds saw it, they're like, I mean, because all the Karen Reed shit stemmed out of this case. Like, people that don't understand how that federal investigation into that department started, it was because of this case. And, you know, from that, they're like, all right, well, this case is so fucked up. Like the way they're like, this is so twisted that we have to take a harder look at some of the other stuff that's going on, which frankly, you want the feds doing. You know, I don't have some kind of blind trust in cops. I mean, they're fucking guys that went and got badges and went to a police academy and have a shit ton of power. I want oversight for them because I don't trust them, you know, and that's not to say there's not amazing cops out there. But, you know, anytime somebody has that much power, you know, you need somebody keeping an eye on them, you know, and typically it's us defense attorneys in terms of when there's an arrest, making sure they're not out there violating people's rights and, you know, calling them on that. But on the front end of it, you know, when they're out there doing their shit, I mean, other than internal affairs, I mean, who else is there? Which to me is still in-house. You know what I mean? I know how you see it on TV shows that like all the cops hate IAB guys. Oh, you're fucking
it's still in-house.
Fuck you. You know, it's like, I don't believe that. It's still in-house. So I like, it's hard to say. And the other part of it is that you've got these police unions that are fierce. You know, it is really hard to fire a cop.
Yes.
You know, it just is. So, you know, I mean, they have to really, really fuck up in order for them to be discharged. So, you know, as far as the medical examiner, a lot of times they're elected. You know, I mean, the county coroners are always elected. At least they are in our state. MEs, I think, could be fired and obviously if they've been hired. But in terms of kind of like trying to figure out where it fell apart in this case, I mean, there's all kinds of people to point your fingers at.
When checks and balances disappear, you do end up going down the conspiracy road because people are conspiring to cover something up.
Yeah. And I think it's like here it would have been after the fact. I think, you know, initially Farwell was probably just, you know, doing this shit on his own accord. You know, maybe like you'd have to think, dude, some of his other cop buddies that were in the program with him were like, dude, you're kind of fucking being creepy. You know, with this chick, but
unless they're all being creepy too.
Exactly.
But again, there's so much pressure within the ranks that even the good apple who's sitting there going, I don't like what I'm seeing. They may be so fearful of the process of the shit that's going to go down if they, you know, raise their hand and say, I'm not okay with this, because so many might be corrupt in the department that they're outnumbered. Yeah,
100%. Like not only is that maybe, that's absolutely the truth.
And sometimes I imagine some of those folks feel like there's this corruption everywhere. I'm one of the good ones, and they need some balance in here. They need some good people in here who can do what they can do within their power while still trying to keep their job and be able to be accountable for what's going on behind the scenes. You know, some people just trying to endure it like that. It's always interesting in cases like this where then you have weird behavior that goes on, like, you know, phones and things like that being destroyed or deleted or gone. And that ties into the Karen Reed case a bit. And I don't want to go super into Karen Reed, but when we see in that case, there were several of the officers, they all got rid of their phones at a certain point. Now, and many of those officers were not directly involved on this case, on the Sandra Birchmore at all. But they did know people. They communicate. They text. They're there. So, you know, you're texting your buddies, your colleagues, whatever, about stuff. You know, someone who may be involved in that could be texting stuff back and forth to people who are not on that case, but still wearing a badge. That's what I always suspected about that piece of that puzzle when we're talking about the Karen Reed connection, was that like, what are they getting rid of on their phones? And does it have anything to do with this case that we're talking about over here, which at the time was Karen Reed? It made me wonder, like, is this like there's a lot of shadiness here? So I'm going to guess there's a lot of things on these phones that probably connect to far more cases than just the one at hand, and that they may have a vested interest in getting rid of because it will be unearthed because they were going to look at it for this case. Well, you may not find the evidence for it on this case, but you may end up opening an investigation to something else because of what you find on it because of that.
Well, and keep in mind, how stupid are you? I mean, you're in law enforcement and you think just destroying your phone is going to take care of everything? Can we have an intellectual test here? Because if that's what you think, you're not very good at your job. You're not paying attention.
I mean, you're 100% right. But the reality is, if you destroy the evidence, you've destroyed the evidence.
Yeah.
If you're think about it from the perspective, if you're a cop and you know that your carrier after 30 days is not going to be able to produce the actual messages themselves, they'll obviously be able to show that a text went from this number to this number, or was received from this number to this number. But in terms of the context of the text themselves, they're not going to be able to get it. I mean, if you've got all kinds of shit on your phone that you're like, fuck, dude, like, because I'm a cop, I know they're going to be able to extract everything. Like, I got to flamethrow this phone, man, because I'd rather deal with the destruction of evidence charge than murder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So they weren't idiots in doing what they did in, taking like the phone to the military base and physically destroying the SIM card and the phone, because that's what you do. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is that it's a lesser of evils of what they know they could be up against once they realize that the heat is getting a little bit too close.
Thank you for that, because I didn't see it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's and it could be your way too, though. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, every cop doesn't have to be a criminal mastermind, but you would think baseline that they would all have a pretty clear understanding that you're going to be able to extract everything on that phone. But like, to Tony's point, talking about kind of like the broader scope, where everybody's like, oh, well, this is why all these people in the Karen Reed thing were acting so fucking weird and deleting shit. And where if it's cops, it could have been anything. I mean, we talked about it at one point in terms of, maybe affair, whatever. But when you think about it in terms of in relation to what was going on with Birchmore and potentially other cases, especially cops that are texting one another, and if they're like, oh man, that was fucked up what fucking Farwell did, where they're making, like allegations of knowledge that they knew. So, I mean, you're going to fucking get rid of that shit, dude.
Yeah. Because that can incriminate them, not just on the level of, and that could be to a very innocent person who also is fearful and isn't saying anything. I'm not saying it's right or wrong that they didn't. I'm saying it's wrong they didn't say anything. I am saying that. If you 100%. Do have knowledge of this, you should have fucking spoke up. But if you didn't, but you were doing it for fearful, I have more understanding. It certainly doesn't make you as bad as the perpetrator of the crime itself. But you got some accountability there. And you'd be facing that accountability if you didn't do the right thing out of your own fear. You still could face those consequences. So getting rid of that stuff, everybody's going to act in their own self-interest at the end of the day.
100%. I mean, people always do, I mean, that's just the reality of this thing, is that people are always going to be in acting in their own self-interest, but more importantly, in self-preservation mode.
Safety, security, and prosperity. That's what everyone's going to always be acting in their own interest for. That's how people work. That's just how we operate. And it's sad. And that's why when you think about this Birchmore thing, kind of on a bigger level, it's really hard for me to believe that within the program itself, that these other cops that were working that program didn't know what was going on. But like you said, it's like there's certainly allegations that Sandra was passed around, between these, which to me is just so disgusting and horrifying, man. It's like, it's such a breach of the public trust. It's such a breach of their duty. It's such a breach of their authority. And it's like, again, when you think about the grooming side of it, it's
you know, I always tell people on my show, I'm like, I get the sense, because I'll be reading the chat, and I'm gonna get the sense that you don't really have an idea or clear understanding of what grooming is, and just how deeply these predators can get their claws into these kids, in terms of, you know, because it's like everybody thinks, oh, a kid's gonna say, oh, creep, I don't take stranger, you know, candy from stranger. It's not how it works. No. They ingratiate themselves with these kids. They create this trust, and you know, and it's a slow process. Yeah. You know, they're not going in there immediately trying to get sexual with these kids. They're building that trust in that relationship long before that happens. And then when it happens, you know, these kids have this misconception that this person loves them and cares for them. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
And look, I mean, I'm thinking back into the 90s when I was like in junior high. I remember there being some teenage girls that, you know, came from kind of rough homes, were certainly seeking out some sort of figure that was going to be stable. And I remember we were like, what, 14, 15, 16 around that point in time. We couldn't drive. So it'd have been like, yeah, in that age range. Yeah. And I remember some of those girls being like, I got me a man.
Yes.
And he's 20, or he's in his early 20s in college, or he's early 20s or something. I got me a man. You got yourself, like, them like shaming the other girls who were dating the other 14-year-old boys. It's like, I got me a man. And this is open conversation.
Yeah.
And guess what? None of those children who are in this circle of discussion are looking at that going, oh, you're being groomed.
Right.
Maybe today they would be. Maybe there's more awareness to that. We didn't have To Catch a Predator. Dateline wasn't about all this back then. Right. Maybe today there'd be a little bit more, you'd hope, but I don't know that there is. Because every single one of us who were not being groomed in that moment, we're just like, well, that's a weird relationship. I don't know, like, how this 20-some-year-old man is relating to you, but it was just accepted. Like, oh, she's dating somebody. She's dating an older man, and she's 14. Wow. And to think that was, you know, like our normal way of thinking. But look, when you're that age, I don't know that most 14-year-olds are thinking all that differently today within the confines of their own bubble when one of them goes and says this to them.
Well, they don't have the capacity to do that. No, they
don't. They don't the reps, hopefully, to think that, you know, because hopefully they've had a life that hasn't been filled with trauma and predators. Yeah. I mean, the ones that do recognize it probably have had a life that's filled with trauma and predators. Or dad had them start watching To Catch a Predator at a very young age, and they're able to look at this shit and go, I'm one of those dads.
I know, I was just going to say, it's you.
Yeah.
Or an older sibling.
Or an older sibling, yes.
It's like my older daughter, like she went to the same school as my 12-year-old's going to, or they're now 13, you know, same middle schools, knows the same teachers, you know, so like she's kind of she's a bit of a watchdog in terms of my youngest. Sure. As Cameron knows, or, you know, she'll be like, oh, what about this? You know, it's like, because I think that the kids are more aware, and I'm basing that on, you know, just this concept that there's chatter that goes on about, you know, like between these kids with anything, you know, not necessarily. I'm certainly not implying there's any creeps at my kid's school, because as far as I know, they're all wonderful people. But you know, in terms of just kind of like, I see it, that when I look at a group of girls, like a friend group, that I like to think that they protect one another to a certain extent. Like, I like to think that if my daughter was being groomed by some 20-year-old, that her friend group would be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, but the problem, the problem with that, though, is the groomer is going to then convince that child, you don't want, those aren't your friends. If they're telling you that our love isn't real, and, you know, I mean, there was fucking songs about this in the 80s, and like, look at Benny Mardone's Into the Night. She's just 16 years old. Leave her alone, they say. And the video's about this creeper coming into this girl's window, and father's chasing her out, and this is popular music. You know, it's been like celebrated for so long and normalized in weird ways. And we normalize it in weird ways too that are very different than that it was back then. But there's certain ways that we just normalize this unhealthy behavior. And then, yeah, I mean, I a lot of the girls I hope would stand up and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. But nobody wants to admit they're wrong, including children. So when children are being met with, oh, this guy's creeping on you, and this is really not right and not appropriate, the first reaction from a young girl that's being preyed upon like that is probably typically not, oh, you're right, I didn't see it that way.
Right.
It's more like, fuck you.
Right.
I love him. He loves me. You're just jealous.
There's strength in numbers.
There is. Yes.
And like the other part of it is like these days, especially like kind of like we're out a little more rural. We're not quite as urban. So, you know, there are rather large friend groups that exist. And these kids are all like all up in each other's shit in terms of what boys they're talking to, you know, with Snapchat. It's like the ability to be able to communicate with one another, I think, is helpful in kind of tempering that particular situation. Because back in the old days, say in the 80s and 90s, when we were talking about, we didn't really have that type of ability to be able to communicate in a group to where even if one of your friends is like, hey, yo, that's fucked up. Like, I don't know why this guy's talking, you know, in the group chat, going to make you more aware where they're just, and they can locate each other. You know, they just are way more involved. With, you know, I have this concept that I think that there is the real power and strength in numbers for girls that age. And, you know, it's like, it's my rule. I tell all of my daughters, I'm like, I never want you going anywhere without a homie with you, at least one, preferably more, you know? So like, but I hear what you're saying. Like if the groomer's so deep in to that point where they've already formed a relationship, then you got problems. You know what I mean? Then like I'm talking more front end when friends see something just fucking off going on. Like I like to think that most kids, because we've drummed it into their heads enough through school and just through living life, that look, there's fucking creeps out there, and you need to be hyper attentive to these creeps, and you need to be aware when they're doing things that seem innocuous or innocuous on the front end. But are really very devious in terms of what their motive is. You know, you've got to put them on high alert for that, which sucks. You know, I mean, it sucks. It's like I lived a very different life as a child in terms of kind of like innocence and you know, being able to go out until whenever the street lights came on, and my parents not having to micromanage where the fuck I was and what I was doing and who I was with. Those days are long gone. You know, and it's there's just a lot of bad people out there. And
I want to hit one more point on this before we wrap up, because the DNA test obviously came back. It shows Farwell's not even the father.
Dude, what the fuck?
That just blew me out of the water.
Now, does that fact, and I know I'm going to throw it out there because I want your answer. Does that fact weaken the prosecution's case, or does it simply just remove one potential motive to reveal the deeper, more sinister one here?
I think it plays the opposite. I think it strengthens the case, because the fact of the matter is like this was completely unnecessary. If the true motive was not to just hide the fact that he was in a relationship with a child and going to face whatever is going to come with that, but the fact that the real motive was to hide the fact that he had a child with her. You know, and that because you know what I'm saying, like in completely. His mind, it's that part of the case where I'm like, are we pretending like fucking people didn't know that this guy was like molesting this girl?
I think a lot of people were looking the other way. Yeah.
Well,
that's the screwed up part. I think a lot of people were just like, well, she's of age now. Yeah, they started dating, because they'll say something like, use a safe word when they were, and then the people look back in their own world and go, well, my grandparents got married at this age and that age. Well, that's kind of, and that will be rationalized. They will rationalize grooming and all of this shit.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to look back at their own world and go, that's kind of fucked up where I came from. Yeah. So with all that being said, with the not being his, are we ever going to find out whose kid this is? I mean, she's dead. So it's not like she can get court orders to force paternity tests on all these men that she had been sleeping with. Can a court order come into, can we run a paternity test on everybody in the department?
Yeah. Well, that's the fucking thing, right? I mean, that's a really interesting question, because I have long thoughts on DNA collection, and I'm always concerned about law enforcement misusing it or, abusing the power that they have with IgG and those things. And, as much as I think there's this thought process that they'd love to have every single fucking person in this country's DNA on file, it stands to reason that we should have every fucking cop's DNA on file.
I agree with that.
It's like
it's part of the job. It's like, you want to do this, you're going to be held to a higher standard because you're a police officer. So because of that, yes, some of the rights and freedoms that the citizens out there enjoy, you don't get, but you also get to carry a gun and tell people what to do. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, you have huge power. Yeah. So, I mean, the only other way they could do it, T, is if they're going to do it surreptitiously.
Yeah.
They're going to sneak around.
Go find somebody eating pizza.
Yeah, they go, look at that fucking pizza plus that guy left. Oh,
hear him in this shit. Yeah.
That guy. Yeah, I mean, I would think that there would be some kind of push to try to figure out who actually impregnated her. Now, I mean, I have no idea what Sandra was up to outside of this relationship with Farwell. I mean, because he was fucking married.
Well, we do have ideas, because there was 3 other people who admitted to having sexual relations with her who were all officers. So we have some of an idea what she was up to.
God, dude, it's so fucked up.
I would think at least those 3 who can't be cops now for the rest of their lives have to take the test. And if not, maybe somebody should be looking around for their fucking pizza boxes.
Exactly.
And maybe we should figure this out, and then gather everybody together, make them think they're going to a big old, party at Buffalo Wild Wings, and then suddenly Maury pops out. And guess what? Who's the father?
Take all their half-eaten chicken wings.
Exactly. They're like, here we go, everybody. Maury Povich is showing up for one final appearance in Canton, Massachusetts. Mark your calendars.
You know what? In light of all the failure on the front end, it's the least we could do for Sandra Birchmore.
It is.
That type of investigation needs to take place on the back end, because everybody failed her as a child. So I'd love to see that. And it would make for great content.
I would love to see Maury show up and do this at a Buffalo Wild Wings as well in Canton. I think that would be...
It's a winner, dude. It's a winner.
Yeah. And you have other special appearances by other people that come in oh my God, Proctor's here today. What's going on? Yeah. And in no way am I saying Proctor is the father of Sandra Birchmore's child.
He's not saying that.
Not saying that. It's just a special appearance. It's, it's just the greatest hits of all of the shit that went down over there. Yeah.
Good times.
That's going to wrap up.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
To wrap up this episode of Hidden Killers Live. Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube if that's where you're watching us. Be sure to press subscribe wherever it is, their podcast platform you are currently listening to us on. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of it. We come to you live every single Monday through Friday. 10 a.m. Central is when it starts on YouTube. And then, of course, you get the content right away as we put it out. So thank you for tuning in today. Let us know your thoughts. Hit subscribe. For Bob, for Stacy, for Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.